Penetration testing. We also refer to this as pen testing, and no, I'm not talking about you getting a job at BIC. Thank you. Now, what a pen test is, and we will have a completely separate course coming up on pen testing, but we just want to talk about it here briefly. The concept behind a pen test is for the ethical hacker to actually go through and simulate an attack on a network. While the attack is being simulated, we are actually evaluating that attack. Then we try to fix the issues and then try to simulate the attack again. Now, the question usually comes up of why do we do pen tests? Well, we do them to help identify different threats that the network may be susceptible to. We also want to reduce our return on security investment. We also need some way of gauging our efficiency. Pen tests also help us to determine what upgrades are needed and when and why. Helps us to test our controls that we have in place, as well as maintaining a standard for our security. I love pen testing because the fact that it helps to reassure that things I've done are protecting the company, and I have some evidence to prove that. It helps us when it comes to best practices, which could include how we deploy our servers, our network devices, as well as help us with any type of in-house development that's taking place, any in-house applications. Again, sitting on an update to a line of business application could actually open up some security holes that you had covered previously. So how do we do a pen test? Well, there's several different steps that we go through. And again, this is going to be a high-level look at those steps. We typically start off by gathering information about the network. We then go through and create what they refer to as an exposure study. So we understand the targets involved. What is it we're trying to expose? We then look at physical security as well as SQL injection, possible attacks, web application attacks, source code attacks, especially any open source stuff that's there, folks. Stolen mobile devices would be another method that we would use a pen test for to see what happens. Social engineering, man, we have a whole course coming up on social engineering. It's so important because it is one of the easiest things for an attacker to do without exposing himself. Me just having a conversation with one of your employees, either in person or via email or on Facebook, whatever, you'd be surprised what people will actually expose. Passwords, way of testing our passwords. Denial of service attacks. We're going to also be testing wireless connectivity. Yes, you will test and make sure your IDS systems are working as expected. We'll be also looking at firewalls, as well as routers and switches. We've talked about those. The internal network versus the external network. Again, what's visible? We'll also look at email, telecom, different ways of communicating. What is exposed or what is possible through those channels? Mobile devices. Let me ask a quick question. How many of you guys have issued mobile phones or smartphones to your users? Okay, I see a couple of you. Let me ask the next question. How many of those devices, did you encrypt them? Oh, did you even know that's an option? Encryption makes it so that when they turn the device on, it requires a password to decrypt on the fly. We'll also be testing for patches and updates, data leakage. For those of you that aren't aware, SAP is where we actually start to share typically corporate databases or information inside those databases to consumers or to customers. SAP is a system application and products. So you want to test those if you have that type of service available. Your file integrity, as well as log management. When it comes to logs, it's crazy. Sometimes people log too much and they don't know what's going on. Other times they don't log enough. We'll also be testing for Trojan and virus infections, VPN solutions that have been deployed. Cloud, whew, there's a whole new one for us, isn't it? You got a cloud connection. Most companies are heading towards the cloud. You're going to have to pen test that. What are the vulnerabilities between you and the destination? Your virtual machines, that's a whole nother one too. We typically are testing our servers physically, but now we've got one server that maintains or actually is providing 5 or 6 servers in its virtual environment. That just added to my load. War dialing. Got any modems still out there? And believe it or not, there are companies that do. VoIP. Yeah, go Google hacking VoIP, because VoIP is just running off of a network protocol, so why not attack it, and maybe I can start listening on phone calls. Cameras. Yeah, cameras are connected, and because it's connected, it's a target. And when I say it's connected, it typically has an IP address. Can people gain access to it? What does the camera show? What databases are out there that an attacker might gain access to? And I could continue on and on and on, just depending on the pen test and the agreement that technically how much the customer wants to pay, will determine how deep I go as well as how broad I'll go.